I'm Allendale's chief meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your midday weather update. At midday, the surface analysis shows that we've had a little bit of movement in our strong low-pressure cell. It's moving across Lake Superior right now. Fronts that are coming out of that low stretch down through the western Corn Belt. They haven't really cleared Iowa yet. Most of the precipitation that we've seen over eastern parts of Illinois, this morning it was up into Wisconsin. Now it's over Lake Michigan, working into western Michigan, and we're seeing some of this now move into northwest Indiana. It's slow moving, and a lot of this is what we like to call overrunning precipitation. We've got a front that's now being analyzed as a stationary front, but it's acting a lot like a warm front. You got southerly winds behind this, pushing warm air over the top of cold air. That's triggering precipitation right now. It's very, very light. I still think it's going to be mostly confined to that small area that we're talking about already. So, yeah, it moves into parts of Indiana. You get south of US 24, it's probably not going to be a very big deal there. If you get some, great, but I don't think it's a big deal. And we're probably going to be seeing this more active in portions of southern lower Michigan and northern parts of Indiana and eventually into northwestern Ohio. This thing is moving fairly slow because we've also got a strong low developing along the East Coast. This thing's going to slam Washington, D.C. starting probably tomorrow, and then work its way up the coast. I still like the European solution a little bit better than the GFS, although I will say this, the GFS is kind of leaning more European-ish now, which will put heavy precipitation from D.C. all the way up through New England, and it's going to throw it inland fairly far. You're going to be hearing reports of some decent snows, real wet snows, back into the Appalachians. I don't think it makes it out of there and into Ohio or anything like that, but it is going to kind of slow this pattern a little bit with the strong low moving across Ontario and the Great Lakes region. That means that clouds and cooler temperatures are going to hang for a while in the east, but it also means we're going to be seeing a slowing of the pattern farther west. So we've got temperatures that are pushing above normal. They were well above normal yesterday, 60s all the way up through the front range in the lee side of the Rockies through Colorado into the Nebraska Panhandle. We've taken a bit of shine off of that today thanks to a cool front moving through, and there could be another one that tries to sneak into parts of Nebraska. But you give it into later tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll see a good return flow out of the south, some ridging going on. Temperatures will be above normal through most of the plains. You get into the northern plains, normal, I think will be above normal late this week. Let's just say Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's probably about it. So these talks out there that we're continuing to hear of a huge warm-up, they are true in places like the plains and the deep south, marginal at best over the rest of the country. Don't get me wrong, getting back close to normal after the November that a lot of places had is going to be better. I guess I've been kind of poo-pooing things just a little bit up to this point, and I probably shouldn't. But we're definitely not looking like we're seeing a runaway to the upside here on temperatures. With regard to precipitation, it's a fairly typical December-like pattern. Hearing more and more talk about dry areas out there, especially in the plains. The next decent system that comes across the country actually doesn't develop till late this weekend and through the first part of next week. Going to be looking at some moisture developing there. It's mostly going to stay south, though. I-40, that looks like a good west-to-east line for the low to move across. Now, we'll see moisture wrapped to the north of that and definitely down to the south. But we're going to be seeing the heart of the moisture happen over the southern part of the country. Only light moisture farther north, quarter inch or less, over a good part of the Corn Belt. And you know what? While Oklahoma and Texas get good rains, you might even make the argument it gets into extreme southern parts of Kansas early next week. Go farther north in the plains. There's not much there either. We'll see a better system starting to emerge around the 19th, and this is when the pattern looks like it wants to change. We'll see more trough digging over the east and a ridge still holding over the west. So I expect to see the jet stream run basically from Idaho, southeastern Wyoming, northeast Colorado, down south toward Arkansas. That'll make a fairly significant storm track in there. So the 19th, 20th, I expect some moisture, and maybe we'll put another system together as we go into that week of Christmas, although the models are kind of split on how they want to develop it at this point in time. But we'll keep a little moisture in the forecast. Otherwise, it's just kind of a slow go here across the country. Still looking for much colder air to funnel in as we go toward the end of the month, and January and February look very, very cold and active. Saw a longer-term model showing temperatures and precipitation in Atlanta. And, oh, wow, look out. If that model turns out to verify, that really will back up our thoughts of a very cold winter across the country, and it'll probably spell some trouble with regard to precipitation and snow down in the deep south. We'll have to see. As we go international, not a whole lot problematic here either. Hearing talk in Argentina that the rains were fairly nice. Saw the radar picture this morning, and there were some heavier than expected rains as you go north of Rosario and east of Cordoba. Those were fairly limited in terms of geographical coverage. Overall, the rains were pretty much as advertised, and we've seen most of that action lift out now. Going to put together a couple of drier days. Another front coming in probably Thursday into Friday has good coverage across most of Argentine crop areas, and then we'll see good timely moisture next week and into the early part of the week following as well. Brazil doesn't look to be as wet, or at least as concentrated, but there's still timely moisture there. Honestly, that's probably the kind of setup that they need, and so we have no problems. We're looking at temperatures staying within a realm of normal. If there is a below normal stretch at all, it continues to look like it's going to be in Mato Grosso down through Mato Grosso do Sul, but it's not problematic. And the rest of the world really devoid of major weather headlines right now. It looks like a typical winter pattern in a large part of the globe. That's the way things are stacking up at midday. If you've got any questions on the weather, give us a call at Allendale. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.